resurgent. So please give a warm welcome to Ashley Julian and
all right, what an exciting time. So I'm happily to announce and recognize on Maliseet territory, Wolastoqey, our three Sagamos. And I'm going to actually introduce them, and we will give them each a chance to introduce themselves, their community, and their role as female chiefs. And then we will go right into a question period and open that up, and we have now till 3 o'clock for that. So first here, to my closest, we have Chief Candace Paul of St. Mary's First Nation. In the middle, we have Chief Patricia Bernard from Madawaska, Maliseet First Nation. And then in the end, we have Chief Shelley Sabattis from Oromocto First Nations. Take it away.
Is the mic already on? Got a shock. Good afternoon, everyone. Truly is an honor to be part of a panel with these two women. I first would like to thank Dave and Imelda for asking us to be part of this panel, to UNB for hosting this wonderful treaty days, very educational. I also want to acknowledge in the audience soon to be our Grand Chief of the Maliseet Grand Council, Ron Tremblay. Other members of the Grand Council. Also nice to see in the audience a friend of ours, MLA David Kuhn. Thank you, David. Definitely through this process and come to learn of so many friends and so many allies, which I think is really important. And just reaffirmed, I think, my belief in some of the conversations and the presentations that were given today, or the last couple of days, is that we all have a responsibility. You know, it's not just us First Nation people, it's everyone has a responsibility in this treaty process. As I was introduced, my name is Candace Paul. I'm Chief of St. Mary's First Nation, just located on the north side of the beautiful Wolastoqey River. I've been chief now almost 12 years. And I took on that role. I was in the health field, and the reason I put my name in is because my deep love and my deep concern for our people. It's been a road, sometimes bumpy, and but one that I will never regret taking. You know, I guess I can only speak from a woman's perspective, and I think we bring a lot to this role. One of the reason for that is that we are life givers and protectors and nurturers. And I think the Creator gave us that role and wants to see us in this position because to bring a balance. You know, the medicine wheel and a lot of the teachings talks about balance. And we need to have a balance representing us also. I kind of took a role of being out there. It really touched my heart when Chief Teresa Spence, a few years back, went on stopped eating in regards to the situation that was happening. And I was very fortunate to travel on a bus a couple of New Year's Eves ago to Ottawa, to go to the island and to go to her tent and meet with her and surround myself with people who were there for the same reason. We were dealing with a government that was not ready to come to the table. And if anything I've learned in the last couple of days is that, negotiations, treaty talks, you have to come with an open mind, an open heart, and have honesty. And I think it's okay to say that you have fears. I have fears. I have fears for my people. So I think it's okay to be honest about those fears. And we had built a longhouse down by the river, and I personally invited the former premier to come to speak to us in the longhouse. It's funny because I was reading some old material this morning, and the article that popped up was Premier Allward refuses to meet. And I don't know, I can't speak for him, and he's not here to speak for, but I mean, you have to speak with each other. And so that was really, that was really difficult, and that led to frustration among our people. So with the new government, we have a new premier, and we've had a few meetings with Premier Gallant, and I'm hopeful. We're talking, but that's okay to have those talks. We need to have those talks. So without getting into too much of it, that we are at least talking. I can call the Premier's office and at least get a response. So that's progress. I look at that as progress. It's still a long road. I admire the last presenter when he talked about the Treaty Commission office in Manitoba. I hope to someday that we will have a Treaty Commission office in New Brunswick. I hope that my grandchildren can attend a school where true stories are told, and in our own language. I grew up attending school, and like many others here, sank down in my desk in history class when they talked about the savages, didn't talk about any treaties, and I wonder why now, people of my age are very ignorant to the role that First Nation people play. I mean, how does the majority of Canadians not know their history? Not know who their first people were? Do not know about residential schools? I was listening to the news, and I'm not downplaying any type of that behavior is totally wrong. But they were talking about a deaf school where things that should have never happened, and how terrible it was. And people were calling in and were mortified, and I thought to myself, our people deserve that same sort of recognition. It has done such a number on our communities, such a number to our members, that we're still dealing with it, and trying to explain to people, or trying to educate them on it, is something that we have to keep doing day after day. I'm not sure. I'm going to see if the lady in the audience, and I don't mean to pick on her, but she said the word yesterday, burden, as First Nations burden. And I went home last night, and it really played on my heart. Because I kind of agreed when she said that, I agreed to myself that, being out there on the lines and demonstrating and but then I thought that isn't a burden. That's an obligation. That's, as First Nation people, that's our obligation to do. We've been, given that we not only to take care of this generation, but the next 7 generations to come. And did our forefathers 7 generations ago feel that that was a burden? I'm sure they didn't, because we wouldn't be here today. So, I really had to ask the Creator today in prayer to, correct me on that feeling when she, because I agreed with being a burden. It's definitely not a burden. It's a responsibility, and one that we shouldn't take lightly. Let's see. I think I'm going to let Chief Trish, if I think of something else, but I just want to again say it's an amazing conference. We need to have this annually. We need to get working on a treaty commission, a TAR center, but please, I encourage you to ask me or the other 2 women anything. It's anything you want to know. Please don't hesitate to ask. Will you?
I'm just going to speak from here, if you don't mind. Kwe, welcome. Hello, bonjour. My name is Patricia Bernard, and I'm a daughter. I'm a wife. I am a mother and a grandmother. I'm a sister, and I'm a leader. And most of all, I'm a Wolastoqey woman. And Today, I'm just going to speak a little bit about what I know of the traditional role of First Nation women, but it's by no means a lot, or I'm not an expert. And then I'll just give you a little bit of, I guess, an insight into what I do today. And from my understanding, in my teachings, I always understood that traditionally men and women played a role, a balanced role. And upon European contact, when the European men first arrived, and they analyzed what women were doing and what men were doing, and that sort of division of labor that existed, they devalued what the women were doing, although that wasn't necessarily what the First Nations people of the time were thinking. You know, you had a job, I had a job, and together we got things done. Your job wasn't any more important or better, and that sort of teaching that I learned about was, as we know, was based on oral traditions, and when the European men started to write it down, what women were doing, it was written down with a less value. And those particular views happened throughout a long period of colonization, and has been written down over and over again. And going from that oral to written, it sort of got ingrained in the generations. So, and you know, culminating with the Indian Act, which, you know, at one point didn't even allow women to run, to be leaders, didn't, women married outside of their nation would lose their identity. And so these things not only were, I think, in the non-native perspective of colonization, but over time it got ingrained in through colonization, through Native men and Native women. And we've seen a shift. I know that the Assembly of First Nations at one point was the Brotherhood, they were not, yeah, Indian Brotherhood. So, and that clearly changed. Times are changing. And today we're looking more at equality and getting back to that balance of, you know, the input of men and the input of women equally. And you know, sometimes the pendulum has to shift a little bit more to one way in order to make things equal when the pendulum sort of starts to rest. And from my community, I can say that since 2007, we've had an all-female council, chief and council, and that change has made some difference, to the point, I think at one point in our administration office, I think there was one guy working, and the rest were women. and to the point where we've now gotten to, the council has done as much as possible to try and include the male perspective, which has kind of been pushed out in our community a little bit, and we're trying to bring it back. And it's actually refreshing. We work great together as women. We're very much multitaskers. We all have families, children, and that takes its toll on leadership. And because when you're the leader of a community, your community members want to access you at any time of the day, at 3 a.m. And you have children and grandchildren and families, and you have to sort of carry that responsibility, and it can be challenging at times. But really what I'd like to do, I think, is just share with you a very funny situation that occurred. I wasn't chief at the time, I was a counselor. And it's really with our dealings with the government, because the Indian Act is still there, and we deal with the government, the provincial government and the federal government on these issues as they arise. And you know, as women, we can have a sense of humor. And what happened, and I'll tell you this story, is as a First Nation, every now and then, the federal government gives us core funding to operate our communities. And every now and then they have to come in and say, well, we want to check to see if you're doing things okay in order before we give you your annual funding. So they do sort of what they call, like, I think it's an analysis of our government and accountability. So they basically check, do you have office policies? Do you have capital assets disposal policy and all kinds of stuff like that? So we got this list in the mail from Indian Affairs at the time and said, this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and it said, we need to know if you have all these policies. So I went through the list of policies, and I'm like, they had like a policy, operations and maintenance policy. I'm like, we don't have an operations and maintenance policy. And so I called Indian Affairs. I said, listen, can you send me some sort of a template so I can take that name out and put our name in, and we'll have this policy? And they said, oh, no, we can't tell you how to do your policies. You'll have to develop that on your own. So one of the policies, like I said, was the operations and maintenance. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to create our own policy. So our operation maintenance policy basically consisted of how to take care of the office Christmas tree. And so it was very well legally written, and I did it myself. And it basically said that the tree shall at no point have more than 200 lights on it. There shall at no point be more than 20 presents under the tree. It actually talked about, in July, the receptionist was to go down into the storage room, open up the bin where the Christmas tree, and check to make sure all the lights were still working. And so Chief and Council signed off that policy, and we sent it into Indian Affairs. And a few months later, we got our core funding. No problem. So about a year later, my sister, who was the chief at the time, I went to her and I said, Joanna, did Indian Affairs ever come back to you with that policy? She said, no, they didn't. She said, let me call. So she called our financial officer, who was working out of the office, and her name was Andre. So she called up Andre. She goes, Andre, do you still have our operation maintenance policy? Andre goes, yeah. She goes, can you go pull it out? So Andre says, sure, hold on. Andre goes, pulls out the policy, and Joanna says, can you read it? She says, okay, give me a minute. And then, of course, she just basically keeled over in her chair, started laughing. And believe me, that Christmas tree policy is still talked about at Indian Affairs. So I don't know if they would read any policy, but it's really a sort of example of the relationship with the government and First Nations. You need to have this policy, but we can't tell you how to do it. And I guess in the discussions as we go, and there is a respect that's required between, allowing us to be more self-governing, but at some point it seems a little bit ridiculous when they tell you what you have to do. But anyway, I just thought I would include that, as women, we do have a sense of humor too. And and basically that's really all I'd like to say, except for, welcoming everybody. And I'm very glad to be here today. Thank you.
I'm going to choose to say ceded to myself, I guess. First of all, I'd just like to say, Gwe, Wuli Ahaz, Bidabziltia, welcome to Willis-Degwe territory, and Deliwi's Sagam Shelley Sabattis from Willamuktuk First Nation. I'm the newest addition to this panel here of Sagamuk. And the reason why I say Sagamuk is because I had this discussion just a few minutes ago with Chief Trish, and we were talking to Dave Purley, and we were asking, what's the proper term for female chiefs, plural? And since Maliseet is not really a gender-specific language, he said the proper term is Sagamuk. So that's the word I'm going to continue to use from now on. And I've also like to add that during what I suppose I should begin where I decided to run for chief first. I just felt that I achieved all I could at a certain level, and I felt that I needed to change something, that there was something not quite right in my community. It needed a little twist or something. So I felt that it was time to run for chief myself. And I was actually speaking to a friend of mine about it. And she already had it all planned out. And I don't know, it's just really emotional the way it all happened. And she said, well, when you become chief, we're going to do your inauguration different. And I said, okay. So I listened to her. And sorry about that, guys. It just makes me a little emotional. So I listened to her, and she made a lot of sense. She said, we need to bring back tradition and language. And I'm totally, 100% supportive of that. So I said, sure. So I listened to her. In the meantime, I'm thinking, oh, my goodness, I'm not even sure about what I'm doing here. But yet she's got everything all kind of already laid out in order for me. So I just sat back, took it easy, and I kind of just laid back and just kind of took it easy and kind of slid right into the role. And then the next thing I knew, it was election day, and then it was over. I heard my name. And then, so sure enough, she said, okay, on the date, I think it was September the 17th, she said, be ready, we're going to do this. So she came down. We had the most beautiful ceremony. It was amazing. It was a traditional inauguration, and I was gifted with some different, I don't want to call it regalia, but it was like a cap like this, Malsi traditional cap, and a cape, and my banner that all was symbolic of who I was, what I represented, and where I was from, and where I was taking my community. So I've always been a supporter of language and culture, and I felt like that this was something that I needed to offer my community. So I worked along with her for quite a while, and she's like a really good friend of mine, and I text her often and just ask her for advice and just, how do you say this, how do you do that, and things like that, and she always answers me. She never forgets me, so I'm just thankful for that. Anyway, so I was just wondering what to talk about today, so I was just looking at the title, The Role of Indigenous Women in the Treaty Making and Reconciliation, in Treaty Making and Reconciliation today. And I was thinking, like, peace and friendship treaties, what exactly do they mean? Who was responsible for making them, and how much of it is of our responsibility is it to carry on, and how do we carry on with it? So I realized in talking and reading a little bit that actually peace and friendship treaties, the Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq people, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, we all knew exactly what we were doing, what we were getting into when we signed these treaties. And we knew exactly how we were to interpret these treaties. And we always knew from our hearts what we wanted, what we were saying, and what was to be included in these treaties. And it was the government who came in behind us and who misinterpreted everything, started changing the wording, and then things got so flustered and disorganized because the way they were interpreting things, like, yes, okay, you have the right to hunt, you have the right to fish, but only when we say, only how many, the quota that we give you. And we always knew how to do that anyway in the beginning, because we always respected the land. We don't take more than we need. We don't waste. There was always a use for something. Every part of that hunt could be used for something, for clothing, for tools, for food, and very little was wasted. And in our language, we always need to remind ourselves to thank the environment and be thankful for the Creator and everything that's around us. And we learned to say Sil Gil Nabamic. It's like being thankful for all your surroundings, for the two-legged, the four-legged, the winged creatures, the water creatures, everyone, our whole environment, everything is living around us. Everything deserves respect. Every living thing, every living creature. And I guess where our language has always been an oral tradition, like I feel that we need to get back towards that a little more. We need to bring that back to the government and let them know that we aren't going to take no for an answer. We never ever ceded, surrendered, or sold our land. This territory is ours, and we need to get them to understand that we're not going to take no for an answer, and we are going to come back and we're going to fight for what's ours and stand up to you no matter what you throw at us. Let's see what else I want to say here. And I don't know, the role of as an Aboriginal woman, I guess, in politics, it is a bit different. You look at things in a different way. We tend to be more nurturing. We tend to be more, I don't know, sympathetic maybe is the word. I'm not quite sure what the word is, but, or sensitive, as you can see. Let me see here. What I'm trying to say is that I guess our job as chiefs, as women chiefs, we take on that role as nurturers, and then at the end of the day, when our job is over at the office, we go home, and it's like all over again. It's the same role again. You go home and you do the same role. It's like it's a never-ending job. It's like straight around the clock, and we try really hard to provide for our communities. Try to keep all our policies and controls in place, and it's a really hard task at times. But I guess it's the way it goes, and we just need to, I guess, help our communities to understand what's important and how to be, how to provide for themselves. I just find lately that Native communities, a lot of the population has put themselves like in a box or whatever, and some of them are so afraid to step outside of that. They're uncomfortable with things. But I think society has imposed a lot of that on us, on how they treated people of our culture, and like in residential schools and even in the public school system, not including our language as part of their curriculum. Like our language is just as important as French, English, Spanish, Mandarin. We deserve to have an education in our language as well. I think that's probably about all that I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that. So, Sil Gil Nabamic, I guess we're open for questions now.
I just want to say thank you, and we do have lots of time now to take questions.
I just want to say, first of all, a little bit of knowledge that we're three Way chiefs. We have 8 LSU chiefs, 5 of them are women. No disrespect to Chief Prosperity or Tim Paul or Gabby Applin. We have walked the long way under the leadership of women. I, for one, as
Thank you, Russ. I think that my commitment, or what I would like to see, is I spoke of having a treaty commission here in New Brunswick, and under that would an education table. I think the former speaker at lunch talked about that, and try to implement some of their ideas. I definitely agree with you that we have to keep working at it. We have to keep it forefront. We have to keep it at the forefront. And, I'm definitely committed to that. I try to be a person who walks the talk, who not as I say, but as I do, and so I'm definitely committed to that, and to not have any more children be brought up with those types of ignorant, untrue, negative biases.
Thank you for that question, Russ. And I would echo what Chief Candace said, that we need to take a look at institutions like a treaty commission or sitting down with education, but I would also encourage each and every one of you here to talk to one other person about it, because change starts one person at a time. And I think that even though we look at this in a broad perspective, we can on the ground educate people on the street in a conversation, sitting next to someone on the bus. And I can tell you from our community's perspective, we've been engaged in a two-year process with the local municipality, and where we've improved communications to try and dispel myths about First Nations people. And the mayor and I have a very open line of communication. So if something happens, we can easily text each other and talk to each other about situations that would require more education and communication. And I'll just give you a small example. In the city of Edmonton, they have a microbrewery there, and it's owned by a few people in the town. And they decided to celebrate Small Business Week by taking an historical figure and putting his name on one of the beers. And so I saw this, my research assistant, Mario, sent me a Facebook link, and they were announcing the beer as Simonette Ibert, which is an historical figure who actually stole land from the Madawaska First Nation, and basically told the provincial authorities that he bought land from the Indians and he didn't pay for it and he wasn't going to pay for it. But the microbrewery basically touted him as a real badass who defended his land against the Americans, because we're right on a border, the international border, and he's a real go-getter and the spirit of entrepreneurship. So I kind of blew a gasket when I read that, as he is now one of the main characters in our land claim. And I called up the mayor and had a discussion with him. And he was quite concerned about how, of course, he's concerned about his economy and doesn't want this nice small business to face the wrath of Trish. So he basically, he had one of the owners call me, and they were very apologetic. They're bad. They didn't do proper research on this individual. So they pulled the label. They had only did a flat of beer or something, I don't know, but they said they weren't going to continue the beer. But then since offered to name one of their beers after one of our local unsung heroes, so to speak. So that type of on-the-floor education about, how you can't just take a character from that time frame and expect them to be a badass, as it was actually said in the in the advertisement. But it starts, I think, with each and every one of us to change by talking to 1, 2, 3 other people whenever you can.
Myself, I've been a teacher for about 20 years. Before I became chief, I was a teacher in the provincial school system for a while, so education plays a big role in my life. And I guess even though it is a government agreement, I guess the enhancement agreement is, I guess, a step in the right direction for First Nations in regards to education and teaching some of the truth that's out there, or our truth, I guess. So at least now we have a little bit of leeway that we can have say on who we put in the schools to teach our children, what we are teaching our children, and now they are listening to us and they're beginning to realize that we need to have our language in the schools, because our culture is embedded in our language, and if we don't have our language in our schools, then our students are growing up without being a full person or a full rounded person. There'll always be a piece of them that's missing. So I guess it's not only what we teach our children, but it's what the other staff members are teaching and how they're teaching and how they're approaching and how they relate to our communities. Some teachers are very welcome in our communities. They come down, they attend events all the time, and other teachers wouldn't step a foot down there. And some of them have these visions that we haven't made. We have all these rights, we have all these luxuries, but I guarantee that probably not one of them would last a week or even a few days in our communities. So education to me and teaching the truths, I guess, enhancement agreements, I kind of keep going back to that because I was a big part in putting our enhancement agreement together for Muktuk First Nation, and I was actually a teacher in the school system for about 10 years, and nobody was listening to me. I was taking care of 2 schools, and Ron was with us at that time, and he was working in the elementary schools, and then nobody was getting what we were trying to say. And the role that I was doing, I was one person, half a day at junior high, half a day at OHS, the high school. And now there's like 6, 7, maybe 8 people doing the role that one person was doing back then. They just weren't taking us serious at all in terms of education. And now, at least I say with enhancement agreement, it's given us a voice and giving us a little bit of choice in what our kids are being taught in the school. And treaties is a big part of that, peace and friendship treaties. They've got to understand what the land means to us, what the land should mean to the government, that it's not an object. It doesn't belong to us. It's not ours. It's not ours to sell. It's not theirs to sell. It belongs to our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It belongs to all the children and those that are still yet to be born. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's my view on education and truth.
Leewin. So in order of our questions, we have one at the back, then we have one in the middle, over here, and then back. So we have 4 already in line. Yeah, Margaret.
Hello. I'd like to thank each of you for your inspirational words, your wisdom, your ability to lead, and your ability to vision what it means to walk in a place of peace. And I was intrigued with what you were thinking about, Candace in particular, because I've been working in the past many years with women leaders that are chiefs, medicine women, environmentalists, educators. And I followed the work of Ellen Gabriel for a very, very long time. And she has a word that talks about the burden of peace. So when I was working with all of these other women leaders across the country, I was looking for that word in their languages. I was looking for a phrase that described that, and there was no word. There was no word that referred to burden in those other languages, in Denisovan, in the Cree language, in Nuktatuk, and in Michif. So that made me wonder, what are we talking about when we're talking about burden, or is it really what we're talking about? And so I started doing some research and talking to some Cree linguists about what it really meant. And I did receive a phrase from a Cree linguist that I'm not going to read it because I'm not fluent in Cree, but he told me it isn't a burden. It's about the journey. It's about being on the pathway and being the teacher of peace. And essentially, it's about those who follow peace. And so my question to you is, and I think that in itself is very inspiring, and I just asked someone at the back who speaks Wolastoqey if there is a word in your language. And they said, no, there isn't really. There are some phrases that speak to this idea of having hardship placed upon you and having to resist. And there's a word in the Cree language, it's Sasipahi Tatamoan, which means those women, primarily women, that are resistors, that are able to stand strong, that are able to move forward in times of hardship. And so I'm wondering if you can think of the phrase, think of the nuances or words in your own language that would see you in that position of a person that's a woman that is looking for peace, that is at the same time as being resistant, being one that can carry forth and look for joy and revitalization among your clanship, and how it is that each of you are going to be those that inspire others to follow this route to peace and friendship.
That one's kind of hard to interpret it really at first, because none of us are really fluent in our language, and that's not because that we're not interested. It's just that society has forced us not to have that as part of our lives, and now I know personally on myself, I'm in the process of learning my language, and I have been for quite some time, but I don't know of a word. And I guess it probably wouldn't be a word because our language doesn't have specific words for it's not a language that names things. It would be like describing something. So I don't know how you would say that, but I don't know. One of you have something.
And also, I would like to speak to language carriers. Language carriers, elders, people who I look for direction. I'd like to have that conversation with them and ask for guidance, and then maybe share.
That was a tough question.
Zogam?
I was thinking, when she said Zogam, I was actually going to say that, but I was thinking, I don't know. Because I don't know what the exact translation would be for Sogam. I don't know, maybe Imelda could explain that.
The one who leads, but you don't have to invite people to follow you. You automatically are looked upon as a leader by your actions, not just your words. And so when you lead, you don't have to look back to see that anybody is following you. The only time we look back as leaders is to look back at our traditions, so that we don't just look ahead and forget where we come from. So it's important as women leaders that we have to look back to our traditions and our language so that we can lead and not have to look back, because the ones, you know, are also taught to look back to their traditions. And so they just automatically follow the leaders without having to be told to follow me. And so they're already doing that, each and every one of them. Like I know them and I'm so proud of them. And to be in their circle of leadership, each of them have demonstrated to me that our Williston community is in good hands because of these women and other men who are here leaders as well, but especially for them because I have a story for each and every one of their communities and what they, you know, Shelley, she convinced all the principals in a mocktail. We co-presented an entire Christmas concert in our language. There was no English. Those principals, and I helped her, I went to each principal, I said, you're representing our communities, our children, grandchildren are coming to our schools, and you as principals have to demonstrate some kind of a meeting way. So could you just learn some of these songs, so they downloaded the stuff that I had online, the principals and the teachers taught from online the things that we had, and at that time, Zana Ray Nicholas came, and the priest was there, the mayor was there, and they presented totally, we have a video of it, totally number one. I went to every other Christmas concert, it was all in English. Their community did the entire fantasy with the principals, with the teachers. If that isn't a commitment to education,
Will you win? So our next question goes to Ron.
Yesterday morning, sitting back next to my brother Russ, and he said, "There's Jesus." And I looked and said, "Jesus?" What I thought I heard, he said, "There's Chief Trish." Wow. I must be getting old. Marie Pulpa, Tanana. I want to meet you, Chiefs. I want to share with you the very first treaty. And this treaty goes back from the beginning of life. And this creation story was taught to me, so I'll just share the very, very first part of this creation story is that it was complete darkness in the universe. And all of a sudden, Chinimas, which is in our language the great mystery, had a thought. And this thought created life. But life was still in the universe and the earth and everywhere. And all of a sudden he heard this beautiful voice. This wonderful voice with a shaker. And this female voice. And this being was less the feminine part of Shamunga. And that was the first covenant, first treaty amongst a man's spirit and a woman's spirit. And that woman, when she sang, she put movement in life. So the man was the thought, and the woman was the movement. And the movements.
Maliwan.
much as just Sagamot, but as clan mothers of other nations. As clan mothers, in the oral tradition and in the tradition of the Williston area, the grand chiefs and the chiefs were just figureheads who told them what to do and what to say, what the clan was. And I want to share that with you. You are chiefs, but you're also clan mothers of our nations. And I want to thank you for your leadership. We need to, and a lot of terms and words were used today and yesterday about reconcile or reconciliation. And first and foremost, who and what we have to reconcile with is our Mother Earth. It's our first reconciliation. For we as two ladies kind of went astray from the original teachings. I think the beautiful things. So I commend you, we female government, as caretakers of your families, of your nations, and of your territory. And I hope and I pray, and I don't like using a hope, or hope, I think, and I pray that our nation can protect our land and our waters. God, you guys are grandmothers, your mothers, your sisters, and you'll be great grandmothers someday. What a wonderful gift that's going to be. I want to thank you again. I'm going to take my responsibility in a week from tomorrow as the new Grand Chief very seriously. And took a lot, as Wade said, that's what his mother called him. Strangely enough, my mother called me the same. Took a lot better. My last son, but my youngest has a hard head, and I'm glad that I have a hard head, because I'm stubborn when it comes down to protecting our territory and our water. And not just for this generation, but for the next several. And then from then on forward. Much Leland.
Any comments?
I just like to add one word to that, Ron. I think a word that we've been kind of focusing on a little bit is the word unity. We're trying to hold things together, and it makes our words stronger, makes our commitment stronger, and it just makes us stronger as Wolastoqey people.
Willie and Ron for your words. We had a question over here. That was the fourth one.
Hey, okay. Thank you. It feels great to be here. I've had a chance to be here a couple days, so I've absorbed everything that's come our way. Thank you, Chiefs. It's wonderful to see leaderships being women. I personally love it. I'm a mama's boy, so it works out perfect for me. I would just give a little bit of advice to Ron. Stay on your toes. We got female chiefs coming. So it's been a tremendous experience for me. I went to school a way long time ago in 2001 and graduated with a degree with Native Studies. So everything I'm seeing today in the last couple days is a lot of what I've learned, and unfortunately haven't really practiced it in the last few years and moved more into workforce development. So one thing I've noticed is that we have wonderful people going up there talking to them, from lawyers, professors, and what I've found in the last 2 days is it's heavy. It's extremely heavy. It needs to be understood, and it's so important because it's truth. It's always been that way. It's always been truth, and it's just these kind of gatherings just reiterates that truth, what we've always known. So that's why I like this. So my question to you guys is, if things were to build this momentum from this magic, from the beautiful, I guess, feelings we've had the last couple of days, what do we do starting tomorrow to ensure that this feeling resonates in our communities, resonates with our people, to ensure that when we say you want to talk to one person that's next to you to build that, how are we going to build that education piece? How are we going to take what lawyers, professors, and all these wonderful people, how can we take that information to our community members to educate them, as everyone's been saying, as that gentleman, David Arnault, was saying, education, education. So how are we going to take what we've heard, which is so heavy, and put it in a way in our communities to gather that what Graydon said was community support, so we don't feel alone. So when people don't understand, they fear things. So it's going to take time to make sure that people understand, because I think we all know how important entreaties are and how vital. But to really understand what all that means, the interpretation and the idea of reconciliation, all these things, how are we going to start as soon as this conference ends at 3 o'clock? What's our first steps, do you think?
Thank you for the question, Jimmy. I guess my answer would be that we as individuals, have to do our part. And I know in our community at St. Mary's, we have numerous community meetings and trying to educate people on the issues. We have it in newsletters and Facebook pages and social media. But we need, everybody has a responsibility. And we need to educate our people that they do have a responsibility, that they need to read up on things that are happening in our province that are going to be affecting our environment. They need to understand about fracking. They need to understand about Sisson. They need to understand about the Trans-Canada Pipeline. They need to get involved. There needs to be conversation. We all have a role to play to protect the environment. So it's getting each person involved. And I guess you can only do what you can do. And but we need to spread that word. That we've been fortunate. The six Maliseet communities in New Brunswick have been fortunate enough to hire resource coordinators. And we have 2 in the room, and I'd like to acknowledge them. Russ Letica, Madawaska, and Sydney Paul from Kingsclear Village. And they are doing amazing work. But we need to get, the people there to hear what they are doing. So if anything, we need to go and tell our, membership, or ask our membership to get involved. We all have a responsibility.
I'd just like to add that in order to reach the utopia that we dream of, isn't really an event, but a process. And as leaders, and I know for my part, is to give my all to make us heard. And I've really come to realize that in order to be heard, we need to be unified. And in unification isn't just the 6 Maliseet chiefs in New Brunswick, it's also the inclusion of the Grand Council and the Maliseet Nation in Quebec and in Maine. And because we occupy Maliseet territory. And I think that process is moving. It's not a fast-moving process, but it's definitely moving. And as a leader, as leaders, it is our responsibility to keep that momentum going and to reach those goals. And I don't see it actually happening very quickly, but I do see it happening. So it's, I think really it's that commitment to continue moving forward and including everyone in that movement.
I'd just like to add that I have seen progress just in the last couple of months. I've seen people come together that haven't before, and I guess what we take back as chiefs to our council and expect our council to back us, and then they kind of branch out and help spread it around too. But you've got to get your word heard as much as possible and to as many people as possible. Community events, everything, just bringing people together. It makes them happier, makes for a happier community, and just spreading the word and just letting people know how much you care and that each one has an individual role and everyone is equally important, and just makes things go a little better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just one last thing is that question is also directed to the Grand Council as well.
Well, Ewan, so we do have enough time for one question. It was at the far back, actually. We have 5 minutes left.
I'd just like to apologize to Fred. I didn't mention Fred Sabattis at the top there. He's the resource coordinator for Ormocto. Sorry, Fred. Oh, can we take one more?
Yeah, we'll take one more question.
I think it was, and then Barb after.
Yeah, okay, we'll get two more.
Two more. We'll take Barb's the last one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's fine.
Thank you, Barb. Thank you. Marilyn, is she the last one? Marilyn, the last one?
Marilyn will be our last question.
I didn't think it was a question. Was it just a comment?
Microphone. I first of all want to say, as a Michif woman from Saskatchewan and somebody who has access to leadership, that I want you to know that just being here and making yourself accessible to people in this room is something that we often don't have from our Canadian political leaders. I want to acknowledge all of the leaders that showed up to be here and listen, so I honor you so much for doing that. I just want to touch on a few things that I heard, because we keep talking about education, and I'm an educator, and I think it's really important, but I think we need to think about education in a really big way. Education at home, education in communities. It's about learning. It's not about institutionalization of education. It's about learning wherever you are. And I worked on Métis elections in Saskatchewan, and we had an RCMP officer working with us, and he told us that Saskatchewan has the highest seatbelt wearing rate, population rate in the country. And it was only because when they were going to make that law, they went into the grade 5 and 6 classrooms across the province and educated them about what happens when you wear your seatbelt and what happens when you don't. The children put pressure on their parents. Why don't you, Mom, where's your seatbelt? Dad, where's your seatbelt? And the chain reaction, children are our leaders as well, and we forget. So I just want to say that there are lots of ways that we can do that education piece. My question is, I've worked with such amazing Indigenous youth in the last 20 years of my life, and I know how hard it is to put your name forward to be a leader. And I'd really like to hear from each of you something to the young folks in the room, to inspire them to say, I was scared out of my wits, but I did it anyway. And I'd wonder what you would have to say about that to inspire other people to do what you're doing, because I know it's hard work.
Wow. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your question. I was trying not to get emotional, but yeah. The first time I ran for chief, and it was in 2002, and I wasn't successful. I think I lost like 30 votes or something, and I was devastated, to say the least, and I still recall laying in bed, and my mother, being a mother, came in, and she hugged me and said, "Don't give up. You know, they don't give up." And so I didn't give up, and it kind of made me stronger. And 2 years later, I was back, and I won by 100 votes. It's not an easy role. I wouldn't want to misrepresent that it is, but it's a rewarding role. It's a role that I take very serious. It's a role sometimes at night when I close my eyes, I ask, did I do enough today? It's a role where you have young mothers, young fathers who confide
in you, which I think is a privilege. There's times that they've changed their lives around. And that is the most rewarding. It has to be one person at a time. It can't be, I used to beat myself up, not literally, but inside. Because there's days you feel like a failure. We're all human. And then my sister, who lives in Calgary and who has her master in special education, said to me, Candace, you just need to do one person at a time. Everyone has a gift. You have a gift. So find it in that person. Help them develop their gift. And her response to me was to concentrate on the youth. Concentrate on those young children. So when you see someone succeed, I'm thinking of, we have Gump sitting right there. Sweat Lodge. Keeper. Who I'm sure has made a difference in so many of our young people's lives. So will Ewan. When you see that, it's so rewarding. It's like you're giving back. You can make a difference. I encourage any to run for office, to run for whatever you have, that you can, whatever your gift is. But definitely there's definitely going to be challenges and setbacks. But you just have to dust yourself off and get up again. And it's a new day. It's and remember, we're not perfect, and no one is perfect. And this job didn't come with a book to say how to be the. So you just do. I look at it as I do for others that I would want somebody doing for me. I don't ask of anything that I wouldn't do myself. So I try to keep that as my rule. Oh, we'll leave one. I also have a degree in education, and I know that it's important to encourage our youth to succeed. So part of what we do in our community is we really do what we can to support education, right from kindergarten right through post-secondary. And I basically try and do my best to lead by example. And although the job as chief can be extremely difficult at times, particularly when you want to do a good job, you want to please people, But no matter what happens, you're not going to make everyone happy. By doing something for one person, you've upset another person. And you have to sort of cope with that. And I try and cope with, humor. I like to try and make the youth in our community believe that this job, you can do it. And with anything you want to do, you can do, if you put your mind to it. And I think it is evident with what we do to support students and including extracurricular activities and anything that they get an idea to do. Like, I mean, we have members in our community, youth, who have dreams of being actors and actresses, and that's a really difficult field to go in. I mean, you almost have to get struck by lightning to succeed, but yet we still will support them and back them, because that's really what, it's all about encouragement and not crushing anybody's dreams with whatever they want to do. And I think that's really how we try and encourage our youth by reach for the stars. Don't limit yourself to anything. And that's really all we can do.
Running an election or deciding to run for chief is probably the easiest part of the whole thing in the election. It's the day they call your name and you hear that, and it's like, holy jumpins, what I get myself into. Then the calls start rolling in and rolling in. You think your phone was busy before. My goodness, you need 2 or 3 to keep up with all the requests and all the comments and like Trish and Candace both said, you're never going to please everyone, but also, as Candace said, one person at a time, if that's what it takes, and one person at a time, and encourage everyone's dreams. I visit the schools all the time. I show my face all the time. I still supply teach once in a while so that I keep up that part of my life. I attend every baby shower. I try to attend every birthday party, even if, no matter how old the kids are, I go, I get an invitation, I'm there. And my house, my door is never, I don't lock my door. There's always, just in case, the little girl next door or one of my daughter's friends, if she needs a place to crash, in case something happens, my door's always open. So, I don't know, it's being the role of a chief, and also as a woman in that role, it's very touching, it's very tiring at times, it's very rewarding, it's everything all rolled into one. And it's just how you cope with it on a daily basis and how you handle problems and solutions to those problems, and just keeping the dreams alive in each and every one of your young community members, and try to encourage them to look what kind of a job this one is doing. You should do things like that, and then take little bits and pieces of advice or what someone is doing well, like adopt that a little bit and adjust it to your community or your own being, and just keep adding to it. And each chief that comes before you, I guess you take a little piece of that and you add to it, and you keep building and building, and I guess, that's how I see it.
Willie Win Satmo. I just want to express gratitude as a female up here who strives, and since the age of 9, I told my grandma I'd be the first female national chief, and I looked up to a lot of you. I've enjoyed my time getting to know you, Chief Candace, and someday, hope to fulfill such a role that you ladies take on. And just on acknowledging women here, I encourage everyone to say thank you to our female chiefs in Wolastoqey. So it is Willie Win Sagamuk. So on 3, I guess. 1, 2, 3. Willie Win Sagamuk. So we have gifts for you.